Hello everybody. Well, in the last video I said I had some news coming up, and here it is. I'm going for the ultimate declutter. I'm going to sell my house, and that means I've got to empty 15 years worth of clutter. It's going to be a massive task, and I'll go through it. I'll go through my plans, how I plan to declutter, and what I'm planning to do with my house. As you can see, looking pretty hairy at the moment, a bit like a yeti at the moment. Lots of hair. That's coming off on Tuesday when I go to the barber's. The beard's coming along, but still looking a bit scruffy. It's about, I think I'm about 3 weeks in with this now, 2 or 3 weeks in, still scruffy. Probably needs another 2 or 3 weeks. Hopefully when I go to the barber next week, he's going to clean it all up. Last time I went with a beard like this, he said, well, I'll trim it and make it look intentional. Cheeky bugger. Originally, when we bought our house in France, the plan was that we would get to about where we are now and sell the house in the UK. That was going to be our pension policy, and move to France and retire out there. Unfortunately, my wife died 10 years ago, a little 11 years ago now. And since then, we've had a few changes. I'm not convinced that I want to be in a tiny village in France when I'm old and frail. Hopefully that's going to be a little way off yet, but who knows. Secondly, we've had Brexit, made it a lot more difficult to actually just live in France for a long time. And so there's been quite a few changes. And so I'm not entirely sure now that I want to just sell up the whole house, lock, stock and barrel, and retire, which I could do now quite easily. But let's go into that. The problem is it's a massive commitment. If you've seen my video on 10 mistakes the Brits make in France, which I'll link into here, you'll realise there's a lot of Brits sell up in the UK. We're never coming back. We hate the UK, which is how I feel at the moment. And they move off to France. 10 years later, they've got grandchildren, or one of them's ill, or there's family issues or whatever. And now they can't afford to come back to the UK. It's a big mistake, and it leaves a lot of people very bitter and trapped in a country they don't necessarily want to be in. And I really don't want to get into that. So my plan is to take a halfway house. I'm going to sell my house here and downsize to something really small in the UK, which is going to be difficult, hence the massive decluttering. And then I'm going to spend half my time in France, which I can still do within Brexit. That decision to sell my house wasn't an easy one. I've got a beautiful house here in the UK, 280 or so years old, beamy cottage with a modern conservatory extension with bifold doors that go onto the garden. It's absolutely beautiful. Obviously I was here with my late wife, so it's got very fond memories when we bought a house together, and so it's not a light decision, but it's that, or I can't see retirement in the near future without doing something like selling this. So it is going to be sad to be selling this house, but if I get it right, I'll have 6 months of the year in the UK in a small house, 6 months of the year in France in my beautiful house there, and I think that's worthwhile. A few issues with my current house because it's so old. It needs constant maintenance. It needs an eye on it. You know, it's got a slate roof. It's not designed to be just locked up and left. And so when I go to France for any extended amount of time, I have to consider that. And of course I need somebody to look after my cat. Might come on to how I'm going to solve that at the end. So no, I'm not going to shoot the cat. The other issue is this house is basically too large for me. It's a 3-bedroom with plenty of space, and I don't actually need that, apart from for all my clutter. And lastly, I've got very little mortgage left to pay on this. I do still have a mortgage. I got divorced. Once you get divorced, you reset the mortgage counter. So even at my ripe old age, I've still got a mortgage. It's really small. I mean, there's a lot of people who'd be bloody envious of my mortgage, and probably I'd have it paid off in 3 years anyway. The thing is, I don't want to wait another 3 years to mostly retire. So by selling this house and downsizing, I can also completely get rid of my mortgage, and that allows me to tick along on a very minimal amount of work. Because it's a cottage, my house will sell best in the spring when I can have those big bifold doors open, walking straight onto a nice looking garden instead of what's basically at the moment a pile of wet mud. And so really I'd be a fool to try and sell it any time other than the spring, early summer. So that kind of gives me 3-4 months to get it ready, and to be honest, it's going to take me all of that to declutter. On the two extremes, I've got sell my whole house and move to France, which, as I've explained, is a little bit difficult now, thanks Brexit. And then there's stay as I am, work a lot longer, and have to keep working till at least my mortgage is paid off, 3-4 years, and some more to maintain my house. So I'm going to have to keep working. And then somewhere in the middle, there's a sweet spot where I buy a much smaller house, a 2-bed, probably a more modern house, lock the door, walk away, and just tick over, pay off my mortgage, and then semi-retire. And really, I could probably survive on 1 3-month contract a year to keep me funded. I'm not quite ready for retirement yet. I want to keep working. I want to keep my mind active. And if I stop work now, I'd have to give up quite a lot of the things I enjoy doing now. I'm very lucky. I don't have really tight money problems. I wouldn't say I'm rolling in it, but I don't, if my car breaks down, I don't have to worry about how I'm going to pay for it. And that's a lovely, lovely situation. And don't get me wrong, I'm eternally grateful for that. I know, especially at the moment, there's a lot of people who are really bloody struggling. So I'm in a very nice position, which I'm grateful for. So here's my decluttering plans. Now, if you've watched my video on the Swedish Death Cleaning, it's that on steroids. I'm going to follow my own advice. Incredibly, I'm going to follow my own advice. If you haven't seen my video, I'll put a link into it now. So I've got that to do. So the stages of that, as I put in my video: 1, plan, sort of done that now. 2, sort, need to do that yet. 3, be ruthless. I'm going to have to be, otherwise I'm just not going to be able to empty my house. 4, do. That's going to be probably 3 or 4 months into the new year, over Christmas and into the new year. 5, appraise. Well, the appraisal is very simple. If I can't fit it in my new house, I haven't done a good job, so it's dead easy. But I've got a couple of extra problems, which maybe you have, maybe you don't. The first is I have a disproportionate amount of clutter. I can't imagine as many people have got as much clutter as I have. I've got a very diverse set of interests, hobbies and sports. Consequently, a bloody great kayak in the garden, a paddle in the front lobby, spray deck, life jackets, helmet. All those things need storing. And that's just one item. Then I've got my 3D printer. I must have boxes and boxes of 3D printer stuff. I've got my mum and dad's stuff. So I've got a lot of stuff to deal with, probably way more than your simple declutter. This isn't a straightforward open the wardrobe, go through it declutter. So I've got to deal with that, and I've added an extra stage in for my planning. So quickly after the planning, I realised I had to add another stage, which I'm calling combining. So across my house, I have a number of toolboxes, things, hammers, saws, spanners in one. Then downstairs, I've got my electrical screwdrivers. Then in storage, I've got a mitre saw, and then in other places I've got other stuff. I think probably got a load of it in the boot of the car even. So the first job I'm going to do, I'm going to combine everything together. Things like my beekeeping equipment. I've got hives all over the place. I've got piles of them in the garden. I've got some in the apiaries out in the field, which I keep there ready for if I need to put on a hive immediately. I've got some in storage. And so basically I'm going to start combining everything into groups. So a set of tools, my beekeeping stuff, my kayaking stuff, my 3D printer stuff, put it all together, and then you can ascertain the size of the problem. So I've added that after the planning, is this combining, and that might be something that you suffer from or not, I don't know, but I've got clutter all over the place. So that's another stage I've added in, combining. I've got another problem which you may or may not have. My mum and dad died 2 or 3 years ago and left me with a load of stuff. I wish they'd decluttered. My mum was an antiques dealer. I have got so much stuff. Some of it is absolutely beautiful and worth sod all at the moment, and maybe worth sod all in 10 years' time as well. I've got other stuff that I know to be valuable normally, but at the moment in the current economic situation is worthless. For example, I have a very rare clock worth normally well into the 5 figures, currently £4,000 to £6,000, and so it would just be stupid to sell that now. So I'm going to hang on to that, and maybe my kids will hang on to it until it becomes valuable again. But some of the items have been shocking. I have a beautiful crystal glass and silver wine decanter, had it valued £12. You can't even buy a plastic jug for £12 like that. It's just unbelievable. So that's a load of stuff I'm storing because it's too beautiful to throw away. It's not worth selling because it's not worth jack shit, and I'm sort of stuck with it. And if you've got any ideas, put them in the comments, because I've gone round and round on this one. Well, look like Wallace and Gromit there, don't I? And I've got other stuff they've left me which is just hideous. I have some hideous figurines, sort of sea captains looking out to sea in sort of porcelain figurines. I don't think I'd even want to give them to the charity shop. Trouble is, some of them might be valuable. I had a cat with shamrocks on it. I was about to chuck it in the bin, and one of my mum's friends said, "Whoa, keep an eye on that. There were only 200 of them made. It's worth a fortune." And I'm sitting there thinking, really? That was about to go in the bin. So it's a difficult one, that. So I've got that extra area where I've just got to sort it out. The other issue I've got some beautiful pieces of furniture. My mum and dad lived in a lovely big watermill. They had plenty of space, so they had these big items of furniture, which I have no home for. Even in France, where my rooms and my house are a lot bigger than the UK, I just don't have the room for them. And some of them are in a bad state of repair. Not major, just need a bit of a love, a bit of a repolish and a touch up, some of the scratches done and a bit of a repair. And so then I've got to work out what I'm going to do with them. And again, don't quite know yet, but my feeling is I'm going to either repair them myself, because I trained as a cabinet maker and French polisher when I left school. So I may repair them myself, and if I do, obviously I'll put them on here. I may just put the whole lot off to a furniture repair company that I know one nearby, and just say to them, right, repair that lot. Yes, it'll cost me quite a few thousand, but actually they're all saleable items. They're the sort of things you get in posh hotels. I thought this was going to be quite a long video, but it turns out it's reasonably short. So really it's sort of giving you my grand plans, and as I'm doing my decluttering, perhaps I'll take you along with that as well. I mean, I'm not going to open a wardrobe, show you everything, and show you me decluttering each thing. You get the gist of it. That's Wallace and Gromit again. But I probably will take you along for some of it and show you how I'm trying to break it all down. I mean, the size of this task is massive. The timescales are reasonably short. I've just gone and got a 2-month, really nicely paying actually, 2-month contract job, software development, my thing. Cost the timing on that very good from a financial point of view. Thank you very much. Cash those pounds in for a few months. But from a timing point of view, not so great. I wish I'd started the declutter when I had nothing better to do. Hey ho, you don't always get to time it, do you? So I'll probably take you along on that. We've got Christmas in the middle, bit of time. We'll have a look at what's going on. But there's going to be a bit more decluttering. I don't want to overdo the decluttering. But there's a few other things I want to drop in. I'm also going to try some shorts. I'm not convinced by shorts, so these are really short videos, a minute or so. YouTube are pushing me to do it. Their algorithm says if you do shorts, we'll promote you a bit more, and you can get monetized. I'm nowhere near getting monetized yet, and that's not really my driver, but it would always be nice. And once the channel gets monetized, it sort of starts to become a real thing. So I'm going to do some shorts. I promised in the beginning that I'd cover how I make these videos. To be honest, I feel like I've got a bit of imposter syndrome on this. I don't actually think I'm very good at producing the videos yet. When I get a bit slicker with them and I've sort of found my style, perhaps I'll go through that. So there's lots to come up, and hopefully we'll see you then and you can follow along. I've also got another stage, which again, I suspect a lot of people haven't got, but you may have. I inherited my... Back we go. I've got another stage. No. I've got another problem, which you may or may not have.